Jack's Rambly Bits. Hey, welcome back everybody. So, on this particular time, I've decided I would talk about hack clients, as hacks and the general nature of what we are allowed to do on 2B2T has really kind of just poisoned my brain for the last 5 or so weeks. Specifically, the lack of, solid anti-cheat. Don't worry, I'm not complaining about that. I'm very happy that there is a lack of a solid anti-cheat. But just the things that it allows us to get away with. The various things I was able to do on my spirit journey, like hacking down the highways using, everybody's favorite e-bounce. Things along those lines. It's just the various crazy little intricacies of what your client allows you to do that a vanilla client really can't. And just the sheer advantages that grants you as a normal 2B2T player. For years, I was, for starters, actually, let's just tackle the sort of elephant in the room. None of us are hackers. Like, I don't know where everybody got this idea. I've always seen this attitude. Thankfully, in the last several years with 2B2T's popularization, this attitude has kind of died off a bit, and that is, oh my God, you're a hacker, because I used a hack client to do XYZ, and now I'm tainted 5-ever because your server has a no hacking policy. It's funny. The attitude of what is and isn't possible. Like, I still see people, and I kind of saw this in the Camping Rusher, his videos, because he used to troll hackers, people who are X-raying and stuff. This attitude that, oh my God, you're just gonna be the worst thing ever. Your usage of this particular mod or client or ability has tainted, everything. Got to scorch the world, and, you have to be excised from existence. That kind of thing. Like, it's very easy if you have inadvertently let it leak that you use a hack client. It's very easy to unperson people. It's very easy to, say you're worthless now. You're not playing the game right. You're not doing the thing that I expect you to do because of mafifis. Because that's really what it boils down to, is my feelings. And thankfully, I've seen that sort of slop off. People don't really think this way anymore, thank God. Because it was an absolutely unhinged way to perceive hacked clients, because that isn't at all what they are. A lot of people on 2B2T do not have this opinion or this idea, but there are a lot of people out there who are ignorant, who don't understand, and yeah, they will think that. It's really quite sad when you get right down to it, because it's just silly. It's childish and so ignorant of how the real world works. But regardless of how silly some people can be, I have noticed, this sort of reverence for hacks, it's fallen off. There used to be a real reverence for hacks. It was either you were dirty and rotten for using them, or you are absolutely untouchable because you use them. And to a small degree, the untouchability part is kind of true. Because, if you have a good kill aura and the server has no good anti-cheat, yeah, you can absolutely devastate anyone who gets in your way. But, oftentimes, I find myself using hacks in a much more conservative, limited way. Just building my base. I don't really find I'm really doing a whole lot different from what I would have done had I been just playing plain Jane vanilla. And I feel like that is kind of a misnomer or a misconception that has died down a little bit. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. It's beginning to get under control. One of the bigger issues with hacks is just that, you're a leper in some communities. Like, I remember many, many, many years ago, right around the time I joined 2B2T, I was also playing this prison server, and outside the prison server was anarchy. And so I worked my way up through the prison system, and you buy your way out. You get items, you sell them for in-game money, which was just digital money, it wasn't real. And you just sort of got your way out, and then when you were outside the server, it was catch as catch can, do whatever you must. And there were no explicit rules that I remember. But I was eventually banned for using an X-ray texture pack, which wasn't even that good, realistically. But obviously, apparently that was a problem or whatever. I think I was caught by some automated system. And basically, because I had used an X-ray texture pack, I was a leper, and I was not allowed to be there anymore in any way, shape, or form. And I was like, all right, whatever. And so I focused on 2B2T more, which the irony being, I didn't even yet know what a hack client was. I was just using a transparent texture pack. Like, it wasn't even that special in the grand scheme of things. And it just sort of felt like using any sort of anything that was not strictly vanilla was just the worst thing you could ever do. And I just I couldn't help but scoff at that idea and go, do you people realize how bad things are in the real world? Like, to be fair, this was like 2012, so this were the days of, post Team AVO stuff, and so hackers were kind of deified or vilified, even though, again, you're not actually a hacker if you use a hack client. Like, that does not magically convey some understanding of Java or some understanding of how to write your own client or any of that. Like, that's just silliness. And many, many, many years later, I ended up remembering that this server existed. And sure enough, the server that I played on had long since died. And I was like, oh shit, it died. Oh, that's terrible. Well, what happened to the people who ran it? What became of it? And as it turns out, a few people who were enthusiasts of that server ended up making a replica server and had world downloaded the original map. And I was stoked. I was like, oh my God, this was a server I had a little bit of nostalgia for, even though I didn't get to play it that long. Well, what's there to see? And so I joined, and there were like 3 or 4 other people, one of whom was apparently running the server. And I was like, oh my God, I remember this server. And I was like, oh wow, the chunks are from like 1.5 or 1.4, really, really old. Actually, I think it was even older than that. And he said, yeah, the server had a handful of restarts, but that predominantly it was really old Minecraft. Of course, this was like 2017, so we were in like 1.12 by that point. So this was still somewhat recent. And I was like, yeah, I'm free camming around. And I even openly said, oh yeah, I'm free camming around looking at all the old stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm marveling at all this. This is all so cool. And they immediately honed in on the fact that I was using FreeCam. And they're like, oh, you're using FreeCam? Oh my God, how dare you use FreeCam? And I'm like, what's the problem? I'm just looking at the thing. Like, I don't even intend to play through the cycle of, you started in various tiers of jails. You were in A jail, and then you were in B jail, then you were in C jail, and then D jail. Or actually, it may have been D to A. And then when you got to A jail, you could buy your way out of the jail. And I was like, but I don't even intend to, like, go through the motions of buying my way out or all the progression and stuff. Like, there's no point to that. Your stupid little, I wasn't going to say this to them, but this is what I was thinking in the back of my mind. Like, your silly little recreation of their prison hierarchy or whatever, this place isn't going to last a year. Like, there'd be no point to me investing time and effort into working my way through the jail system. The server was a ghost town. So what did it matter that I was free camming around and looking at the place? Like, this was a nostalgia trip. This was not like, I'm coming here to ruin your play experience. Like, it was just so silly. But I couldn't help but be branded a heretic and immediately be banned. And I tried joining on an alt, and I tried to, like, bargain with them and say, hey, look, I'm just looking around. Like, I don't intend to do anything. And they're like, no, you use hack. Bye. And I'm like, well, damn. And so I was just like, well, whatever. I got to look at the map, because that was the point. I wanted to look at the map. And I got to marvel at that for a little bit. And then that was it. And then sure enough, a year later, that server was gone. And I was just like, well, there was no point. Why did you guys bother? Like, you should have been ecstatic that anyone wanted to play the server anyway. And yeah, that was kind of the end of it. And just the nature of how hacks are ubiquitous now. And people don't really I don't think the current crop of Minecrafters, because you got to remember, the 27 till, 2012 to 2017, like, that was a completely different sort of time period. The people who played Minecraft in those days really did not play too much more beyond 2017. And then you had the revival in 2019, 2020 with, Jay Schlatt and the Dream Orbiters all sort of popularizing Minecraft again. And then, of course, on the heels of that, you had COVID. And so, like, you had a completely different group of people. And then obviously right in the thick of that was all the 2B2T stuff. And this idea of, yeah, everybody on 2B2T uses a hack client, which is still true and probably will always be true. And, like, you don't really have people batting an eyelash at that. Like, yeah, of course you use hacks on 2B2T. What, wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You don't? Like, every time someone is, like, you will occasionally get the weird person who's been living under a rock 99% of their lifetime, and they will blow in out of the streets and be like, hey, this is this weird 2B2T stuff I've heard so much about. And obviously, they reek to high heaven of newness. New fig, we shall call them. And they will immediately start positing how new they really are. And fair enough, they will. They are. You can tell. And instantly, they'll start musing on this idea of, well, why? Why are you all use hacks? And my first idea is, you don't? Doesn't that kind of, I don't know, paint you as a target or something? Like, I would love to not be painted as a target. I would love for people to not know who the hell I am. Like, isn't it better to be, especially if you're brand new to a server like 2B2T, isn't it better to like not have people know who you are at all and not have a target on your back? Like, it just makes sense to, I don't know, shut up about things you're ignorant of and just learn, lurk more, as the old phrase used to be. Like, I was always taught on the internet to, keep your head down and shut your mouth and pay attention to what people were doing and saying, and just in general, be aware of your surroundings. And I guess that mentality has like completely been lost, because like, especially with hacks, I always sort of paid attention to who was doing what and why. And I guess that's, that makes me something of an oddity, because people really don't like do that. People love to like say whatever's on their minds nowadays. They will happily, advertise how new they are. And I guess in other communities and other environments, that was a-okay, because realistically, that's how you could open up and talk. You could advertise, I'm new here, show me the ropes. And people were more or less receptive to that. So I don't know, that may just be a difference of time period. But especially with hacks, like paying attention to who's doing what and why, that's always been a good idea. That's always just been something I felt. If you're going to know or be in a place, paying attention, doing as the Romans would do, is always a better idea than not. But shifting gears back to my original idea here, it's really something to just be able to like fly. For example, I saw the other day, I forget who it was. I'm so sorry, your name has escaped me. They were flying to, I believe it was over 100 kilometers upward, had a full inventory of elytra and level 3 rockets, and they were just using the extended rocket hack on Future. And just like the sheer utility of using something like that. Because if you aren't aware, you can, especially if you have Future, you can use the extension, the extended firework hack, fly straight up for literally dozens of kilometers and just point yourself in a direction and glide gradually to the location you want to go. And like the value of doing that is surprisingly absurd. You are capable of suddenly going a lot farther than you'd previously been able to travel. Like it isn't super game breaking. It does kind of redefine. It does kind of sort of redefine how we perceive, 2B2T, because like every new era of 2B2T kind of comes with it a sort of redefining of boundaries. For example, a big era change was in 2016 when the very first people dug to the world border legitimately. Not just when Pyro and Tristan teleported there, but like actual, going there. You just didn't really see that kind of travel before. Of course, nowadays that's nothing. A few weeks of effort will more or less get you there. So it's really not like that special, but like every new era comes with it some sort of trivialization of previously established norms. And hacks are like the number one way we do that. One of the many things that I find continuously useful is the Elytra Bounce hack, where you can just jump your way around, and with Jump Boost 2 and an Elytra, with the Jump Boost, or the Elytra Bounce hack, you can easily get clearance of up to like 10 blocks. Jumping a straight 10 blocks, especially if you can go even higher if you build up a lot of momentum, being able to just clear all of that distance, where previously, it would require of you some sort of like, I don't know, it would require like creative mode or the like. Like that was not common prior to 1.12. And now you can just get that kind of distance and just jump up something that would otherwise have been an inconvenience, because that's really what it is. Hacks trivialize a lot of things that were previously considered inconvenient or annoying. A good hack comes along and just trivializes it. It's just whatever. Like, oh yeah, I can jump 10 blocks, whatever. Like, who cares? That doesn't matter. Like, 10 blocks? Oh, please. Yeah, I can fly for thousands of kilometers vertically. Who cares? Like, it's not that special anymore. And the paradox is, yeah, it really isn't that special anymore. It's special when it is first done. It's special if it's only doable under extremely specific circumstances. But like there's always this air of it's really not special after a certain level of use. After a certain point, it becomes so widespread, it stops being special, you know? And hacks are kind of like that. Like, they always start out niche. They always start out private. But they also always become public, too, if they aren't outright patched. When the chance arises, they generally tend to become so commonplace, we don't bat an eyelash at them. Even if they get patched, like, people just, they come to rely on them. And I know the day is coming where e-bounce is going to get, you know, sucked right out from under us. I know there's coming a day where you will no longer be able to elytra bounce down a highway. That's going to be a sad day. But, like, it is what it is. I'm not really, you know, I'm dreading the day, but I'm not really, like, I expect it. You know, I'm acceptant of the fact that it'll happen. Like, that one time, a few of you from 2019, that time will remember, there was this one really prominent hack, the horse hacking. I remember seeing a really funny post on, of all places, the Reddit. And I know the Reddit, the 2B2T Reddit's the most unfunny place that was ever made. How on earth could there be a funny post on the Reddit? Well, this was actually one of them. Of, like, people actually poking fun at entity speed hack. You know, when you mount your pig and you take off, like that one scene in, what was it, A Christmas Story? Or not A Christmas Story, it was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And you shoot down the mountainside, you know, going 100 million miles an hour. When you were flying through the air with your horse, and, like, I saw memes about that. Like, it's actually not terrible. And, like, the amount of outrage that garnered, when inevitably Housemaster cucked that out from underneath us. And all I could look at, and there were the amount of begging that occurred on the server from that day forward. It lasted about, I don't know, like 2 months, 3 months. It was about a month to 2 months, somewhere in there. And eventually it died down, and you know, that was the end of it. Like, yeah, of course people were upset because a hack had revolutionized the way we'd played 2B2T. People wanted the ability to run down the highway at absurd speed, or run through 1x1 halls, you know, because the nether is riddled with 2x1 tunnels. And to be able to just go boom and get to where you wanted to go. That was so much fun. I had oodles of fun. I was taken by Sculler G after the downfall of Space Valk 3. The first time it was destroyed in 2019. I was taken by Sculler on a giant, like, it was almost like a tour. You know, almost like a safari. And we went on pigback to this one stash that he was giving me because I'd literally lost everything overnight. And he'd taken pity on me, and he was like, here, Jack, you can have access to this stash. And I'm like, all right, thanks, man. And it helped me get back on my feet. And I was like, damn, that was actually some of the most fun I had had in ages. Because up to that point, all I had been doing is building and building and building and building. And, you know, I'm a builder, artist, creative type. You know, I love making stuff. But even that kind of wears its welcome out. Even that gets boring after a while. And so having a sort of small vacation where I was just in the overworld, adrift, because that's really what it was. I was adrift for a little while there. And I was like, well, what do I do? Where do I go? And just casting all of my worries aside and going out to this weird, it was the middle of nowhere for me, just sort of out of my way, out of nowhere area that seemed like it was really far away, but on pigback through the nether, it was in fact trivial getting there. And I was just like, wow, you know, maybe this isn't so bad. You know, maybe I should go out, make friends a little more regularly, because I was more of a hermit, more of a recluse in those days. I was sort of against going out and making friends for a time, because I was like, well, you know, the newer people, they're not worth my time. They're all brain dead new friends. You know, why do I care? And really, that was not as fair a characterization as I should have given. Because funny enough, I find that, like I said earlier, there will be those who blow in off the street for the very first time and they advertise how new they are. Some of those types are the very first people to embrace the newer ideas of, wait, we can hack here. Okay, well, what sort of hacks can I use? If I should be hacking here, well, let me immerse myself in this world of hacking in a way that I'd never have done on my own. And these are the people who, because it was Sculler and a few others who had taught me about various newer elytra hacks and other things. And I was like, because living out on my own in the end, I didn't have all of this understanding. Not like I thought I had. And it's really kind of like important to have these sorts of friendship bonds just to figure out what's what. Why do things work the way they do? It's always important to have that so that you can take advantage of these hacks as they come about. The number of people who showed me when I returned to 2B2T in last August, number of people who showed me about electrobouncing, they were all so eager to tell me, like, yeah, you should set your settings to this. You should do that. Hey, here, turn on pitch lock, turn it to 90 degrees. Hey, you too can bounce down the highway like a madman. The whole spirit journey was entirely possible because that could be done. Hacks really do kind of like, funny enough, the idea of, oh, you're a heretic. Oh, you're awful. Let's expunge you from our community. Like, if anything, all the crazy hacks that I've been red-pilled on over the years, those make my day. Those build a community. Those kind of like, they give you a reason to go out of your way to talk to people some of the time. Because much of the time, for a lot of the COVID, a lot of the post-rusher people, that was one of the many things that were lamented as totally lost forever and ever and ever by the post-rusher crowd. And that was, pre-rusher, you could have a conversation in general chat. And especially lately, that's something you can have again. You can have a conversation in open chat. And like, that was not possible at a point in time. That was just not possible. Simply because it was impossible to talk. It was impossible to bond. There were bots everywhere. There was, people were they were too new. They were very obviously incapable of grasping what was going on. And that was okay. They learned. The weak were eventually weeded out, and they learned. And like, the sheer amount of people who know stuff now and are willing to share it, it's really like, it's the exact opposite of what everybody kind of expected from the older crowd, expected from post-rusher 2B2T. It wasn't just, how do I put this? It wasn't just a hodgepodge of idiots. Things have become more refined now, and hacks have become more refined now. So I guess the overall sort of idea I'm trying to convey here is that the tighter knitted community that we've sort of come into again, that really kind of changes your perspective on what you're capable of doing with hacks now. I like the fact that you can consult with people and ask them, well, what are you doing on this client? What are you doing on that client? Oh, you're using 2 or 3 clients together. Okay, well, how does that work out for you? Like, there is a level of openness that really kind of didn't exist, because especially back pre-rusher, we didn't talk about what client you were using or how to use it. Sort of ancient guild secrets where people were, taking their hacks to their grave, so to speak. I can't even begin to tell you the sheer number of dead clients that I've used that I would love to be able to use again, and I still have copies of them, of course. But like, they're just, no one's maintaining them. Like, the oldest client I've ever used is Notice, and Notice was like the OG client. Everybody used Notice at one point or another. I don't think Notice, after it stopped being maintained in 2013, there have been a handful of recreations, reimaginings, I guess is the right way to put it. But nothing that's ever like blown me away. Nothing that ever was like the original Notice. It's just such a more diverse and crazy environment. And yeah, the community now around hacks is so much more developed. People don't care about being labeled a hacker. The stigma doesn't really exist like it used to. It depends on the server you go to, of course. But yeah, I'm kind of happy that, that's the way things are. Because like I said, bouncing with Electrobounce, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have known to do that had I not been told about it or sort of red-pilled on how crazy some of these exploits are. Right now, I'm using my reach hacks to be able to get a hold of a bunch of glowstone blocks that are kind of poorly placed. I placed them without much foresight as to what I would need to be doing. And so now these giant glowstone arrays are floating up in midair and I need to get rid of them. And they're just far enough away that regular vanilla reach just wouldn't cut it. But with reach hacks, I can effectively remove this giant set of glowstone that would have required a ton of scaffolding and a lot more time and effort. And with electrobouncing, I can bounce between the blocks, which are like 5 or 6 blocks apart each, and then just break them with reach. And it all works out. And it's just, yeah, like, hacks truly do grant convenience to Minecraft. They grant convenience to a world that is inconvenient. They give you a solid advantage. And I can see why people would be upset about such an advantage on other servers. And the answer to that is just let everybody use hacks and figure it out for themselves. Because if you've noticed, there's really not any advantage anyone on 2B2T has over anyone else. You step into a chunk area and you can know almost everything about that chunk area. And like, yeah, okay, there's probably a set amount of known information and known unknown information. and unknown information that Mojang intends for the player base to sort of have access to. But like, the idea of you step into an area and you can know everything about your world, you can know everything about the segment of the game you're playing. I like that. It's kind of crippling not having that level of information. Not being able to know, oh, well, there's a dungeon 30, 40 blocks beneath my feet. Like, that's boring to have to dig around and accidentally stumble across something. Like, if I need to find an amethyst geode, well, I just free cam into it and go, there's an amethyst geode, and then I dig to it. Like, that's infinitely better than just, well, I don't know where anything is. I guess I'll have to just sort of hunt around and hope and pray. Like, I hate that idea. I want to be able to be the master of my environment. I want to have, unfettered access to the resources in my world or in my immediate area, as is the case on 2B2T. Like, if somebody shows up at my base, to have that heads up of a tracer pop up on screen and go, yeah, that's where they are. Oh my God, that's a tracer that belongs to someone who's not on my friends list. What do I do? And then you get like 5 to 6 minutes to sort of hash it out, prepare, maybe less time than that, just depends. And it's like, it's a real pant-shitting moment. Like, to have someone show up and let's imagine there's a world without tracers, radars, mini-maps, and the like. And so you don't know if someone's on your 6. And no ESP as well, no way to see people through blocks. Like, imagine if you had been living under those circumstances, next to someone else within 1,000 blocks of them. To the point where because you can't see each other through blocks, to the point where within the last several days, you had been stepping on the exact same blocks. Now imagine they had deduced you were in the area, but you hadn't deduced they were in the area. Imagine how much more troublesome that would be. Instead of, we've been living in the same area and we just bump into each other and we both, through the exact same levels of intel, know each other exists. Imagine how much more time you'd have put into your base because you can't know someone was living that close to you. And it just cuts out the middleman. It saves you time and effort. How much more would you have developed that base in this hypothetical, only to be found by this other person and possibly even griefed, and be like, well, shit, if I had known they were there earlier, I wouldn't have wasted my time investing in that house. I would have moved sooner and maybe not have gotten as badly messed up. Things would have been like better for me. Like, that idea is just infinitely more preferable than, oh, well, whoopsie, someone's been tracking you and you don't know it and they just show up at your base. Like, yeah, that can still kind of happen. Obviously, chunk finding, is still somewhat possible, but it's a lot less common, And just imagine accidentally living that close to a person who you don't like. Because, obviously on an anarchy server, there are going to be a lot of people who you don't like. And just how much more trouble would that have been? It really makes you think, like, the convenience of hacks is a lot more valuable than people let on. There is kind of like, okay, it breaks the progression of the game. Okay, well, it does kind of, Mojang doesn't intend for the game to be exactly that way. That's the beauty of a sandbox game like this, though. You can play the game more or less the way you want. You're not locked in to a hard progression where it's A to B to C to D, and you're just kind of doing the stuff that everybody else is doing. No, in a game like this, you're doing your own thing. And sometimes that's cool. Sometimes that's interesting. That's better in a lot of ways. I like having everybody be kind of on their own pace, their own goals, their own life, their own world. Even though we're all on the same world, I may be millions of blocks out and thus I'm not thinking of or doing things the way you would do. In a way, I guess what I'm ultimately getting at is that the hack client scene gives more diversity, more uncertainty, and more fun to what you would see on Minecraft. And playing a faction server, if you're playing your standard building towny server, no griefing, no blah, 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 blah. Like, that sort of playstyle shuts you out of a lot of the diversity and interesting sort of gameplay styles that, in my opinion, are part of what gives 2B2T its lifespan. This is a server that's been around for 12, 14 something years now and has been going strong. I'm looking at the tab list right now. There are 315 players online. Like, how many of these towny servers have even a quarter of that? And yeah, I find that limiting what people can do excessively, it really does ruin the experience, and hacks, it enriches your experience. That's what makes it possible. You couldn't do that on other servers. And and that's what makes you really appreciate 2B2T as a whole. You can do those things and you're rewarded for doing those things. You're not penalized for hacking, you're rewarded for hacking. And you know what? It makes the place pretty damn cool. It makes the place cooler than you would have been able to experience elsewhere. And at the end of the day, that's what makes it worthwhile. That's what makes 2B2T more worthwhile than not. And yeah, the random person you hack down the highway and happen to see, I don't know, maybe they're baritone walking, maybe they're naked, maybe they're armed to the teeth like you, and they're hacking in the opposite direction. And maybe the two of you stop and you look at each other and you go, here, have the latest map art that I found X kilometers down the highway. And you part ways and you go, okay, you're pretty cool. Thanks, man. You know, that's the 2B2T experience. And hacks, without those, I mean, if we had that stricter anti-cheat I talked about, we just wouldn't have that type of environment, I don't think. I mean, you might still have people randomly running into each other and stuff, but just imagine the pants-shitting terror of zoom, there goes a player who is in full netherite, and you see them for a split second, and they're gone, and they don't bother you. They may have even been AFK. They may not have even realized they passed you. And that's just a situation that you couldn't have experienced any other way, on any other server at any other time. To be able to just be visited by someone out of the blue who was very obviously utilizing a hack or an exploit or something like that. You know, how many people were, unironically, before the copy pasta of who is Bubba J and why is he placing TNT at my base? Like, before that happened, how many people were taken unaware by Bubba J, unironically, and were being destroyed? Like, the pants-shitting terror of being no-commed, and there's iTristan. There he is. He's announcering away. He's placing that TNT, and you just know, oh, fuck, that's my base he's placing that TNT at. Like, hacks and exploits are what make that possible. And yes, that's awful. You don't really want to be in that situation, but that it defines 2B2T for the better, in my opinion. It sucks when it happens, but like, you do have a greater appreciation for the wild, unexpected moments that 2B2T can visit you with. And you don't get that anywhere else. You can't get that anywhere else. And that's really like the core beauty of 2B2T. And if you like what you've been hearing, you know, please leave a like, subscribe, ring the notification bell as well. Follow me on Twitter, join our Discord. You know, we're going to have more videos just like this. I'm going to try to make one every week. I'm of course working on episode 5 of Storytime with Jack. I'm of course doing all sorts of other things. I plan on doing some more vertical streams as well for the YouTube shorts. I can't believe that worked out as well as it did. And yeah, like, just keep on keeping on, guys. This place is, you know, there's a reason that 2B2T is still, like, worth playing. I'm kind of happy Housemaster got off his lazy ass and made it a better server again. You just don't see that, you know? So here's hoping that 2024 is the year of the shit poster. I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. But at any rate, guys, thank you all so much for giving me a listen, for coming out. I greatly appreciate any support you all are willing to give me. If you want to support the channel, you know, join the memberships as well. That is, if you will also get a book on 2B2T and any sort of like extra peripheral stuff. We have a once a month book club live stream that you can listen in on. And yeah, just anyone who wants to give me a bit of their support in any way, I'm greatly appreciative. And so yes, thank you all so much for listening and giving me a moment of your time. I know your time is precious. Y'all have a wonderful day. I will catch y'all later.